We're recording.
All right. Welcome everybody to our second interlude in the One Ring campaign. We have something a little more light and fun planned for tonight. Not a lot of planning actually involved at all. So, Cypher, you've had what two sessions off?
Yes, I've not been here for
Yeah.
2 sessions.
We've missed a couple sessions, so we're going to get him caught up and do a little RP in the meantime. So, without further ado, let's go. Fifth, 3009 of the Third Age, coming down by winding ways into the Ruinen Valley, Arthanur, an elf of Imladris, and Goodwill Tuk, a hobbit of the Shire, take in their surroundings of this magical place. On either side of the path, as their horse kind of clops down the winding way, there are leaves of gold and orange and green. The air is fresh, and though it's late autumn, there's nothing of death or dying in this place. Instead, there's a sense of permanence and of life. Descending further, you can hear the roar of a waterfall, and casting your glance that way are met with the glad sight of Elrond's home, the last homely house. Eventually, you stable your horses, and Arthanur is called away to speak to Master Elrond. That happened last session, or a couple sessions ago.
Mm-hmm.
After his departure, the stable hand helps Goodwill down from his horse. "Ah, my, he says to the halfling. These are strange days indeed. Our sentries reported that one of your kind had come, or come again, I should say. Ha! Indeed, one of your kin has requested your presence. I'm sure you know of him, Master Bilbo Baggins. From his stories, left a name for himself in the Shire." Then he smiles at Goodwill and says, "But alas, the sun is nearly set. If I have my reckoning right, you will likely find old Baggins inside." And he gestures up a winding path that goes past a few other dwellings towards the last homely house that you saw on your way down into the valley. It's a tall structure that's 3 or 4 stories tall, and seems to nearly blend in with the natural environment, crafted of twists and turns of well-wrought wood. Master craftsmanship indeed. And so the camera pans down through the trees, into the valley, past waterfalls, and lands on the rather homely face of Goodwill Tuk.
Oh my. This is a beautiful sight indeed. And Goodwill takes a moment to just look around and keep a memory of this place in his mind. It is everything that a hobbit has been told about this place, and in many ways a lot more. Goodwill will thank the elf at the stable and start making his way up towards Bilbo. He is extremely excited to know that Bilbo is here as well. This will be the first time Goodwill will actually be meeting Bilbo. He's heard of Bilbo and his tales, and he hopes to find the hobbit in good cheer and maybe share some tales of Bilbo's exploits.
And so as Goodwill goes down from the stable, he descends a gentle hill and finds that the path is paved with these kind of rounded cobbled flagstones, and he crosses one bridge with a stream underneath that goes and joins with the Bruinen down over a couple different cliffs. And as he passes one of the dwellings, an elf steps out, and he's 10 yards or so from Goodwill, and you hear from behind you, Goodwill, you hear, "Hail, halfling!"
Hail! My name is Goodwill. What is yours, kind sir?
And up to you walks a very, very tall elf, golden haired. His eyes are bright blue, and he kind of looms over you, and he has a good natured smile and kind of goes down on one knee to kind of get to your level, and he says, "My name is Galdor. I hail from far west of here. You may know it, the Great Sea, you call it, the Grey Havens, just past Michael Delving."
Indeed, I have heard of such a place, but you would be the very first elf I would have met from there. It's my pleasure this evening to meet you, Sir Galdor.
Sir Galdor, he kind of, you say too much, but then again, your people are kind-hearted and well-spoken. He stands up, full of cheer and of good food, as much as I can remember. So, Goodwill, are you heading to Master Elrond's? Would you care that I accompany you on this short walk?
Indeed, I am, and yes, I think uh, it would be quite a fine walk in your company, Galdor.
So they kind of head down the path and take a few twists and turns and make small talk. And as they do so, Galdor kind of tells a little bit more about himself and that he's often traveling back and forth between Rivendell and the Grey Havens. He's a messenger, he says, of one of the lords there in the Grey Havens, and doesn't really say too much more of it. Would you want to give a lore roll?
Yes.
Just, target number 12.
Okay. General skill. Oh. Hold on. Lore. Ten.
Gandalf, though.
Oh yes.
So you've heard of the Lord of the Grey Havens. His name is Círdan the Shipwright. He's little more than the stuff of legends in the Shire, but rumored to be among the eldest and wisest and fairest elves in all of Middle Earth.
Goodwill will remember that, but not say anything so as to not be not to be indiscreet with Galdor, and he will just listen to Galdor's stories and not ask very prying questions.
And as they walk, Galdor then will continue to start to probe Goodwill a little bit and ask questions about the Shire. And he says, "We live in strange times indeed, when there are two of your kind within Rivendell, and two of your kind that grace this valley with their presence. Tell me, is all well in the Shire? There are whispers of a growing shadow in the north, but I pray your kind people will never have to take place, never have to confront such darkness."
You are right, Galdor. The Shire is doing well when I last left it, but at the same time, there is a shadow growing in the north. It was not but a few weeks past that I was in Fornost myself, and it was laid siege by orcs. Um, a kind and brave prince now is trying to lead a fight against these orcs. I'm here to accompanying Arthanur in reporting these activities to Lord Elrond himself. Maybe meet Lord Elrond and see if he has any advice for small folks like me. But
And he kind of chuckles. Go ahead.
But yes, I agree that us small folk never much involve ourselves in the matters of other places than the Shire. But I fear that it is time some of us do step up and do what we can to keep the darkness at bay.
And as he says that, Galdor kind of chuckles to himself a little bit and acts like he's going to say something. And then he just has a look of slight look of sadness that kind of crosses into his eyes, and they finish the rest of their walk in silence. And at the entrance to Elrond's house, he says, "Oh, I bid you farewell." And he kind of gives you a short bow and takes a pathway that kind of goes around to the back of the house.
Goodwill would return the
And,
bow as well.
You step inside. So as you walk in, you can hear, as you walk in, there are several staircases, and one of them goes up to the right. It's a tall spiral staircase that's gilded with a design of golden leaves. And from the top of that staircase, you can hear Arthanur and someone else speaking in a discussion. Most of it's civil. Sometimes it raises to a little more heated pitch. He seems to be speaking with someone, and even the voice sounds lordly and noble to you. But as you enter the house, there's a feeling of warmth and safety. Immediately upon entering, there's a large foyer, and there's a long table and many chairs, and a table set with pitchers of water and wine, and there are plates of nuts and cheese and honey and bread, and in the corner there's an elf playing a lute. While there's others, kind of elves sitting in a crescent circle on the ground in front of the musician watching him. To your left, so the opposite way of where you hear Arthanur's voice, there are many doors framed with carved wood in the shape of trees, and from that way you can see the flickering firelight. And so you likely will head that way per the instruction of the stable master.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would cautiously walk forward so as to not be intrusive on the rest of the company in the room.
And so this is something called the Hall of Fire, and in this hall there's many great couches and chairs, and the far end is a small and wizened figure who sits with his feet propped up. On his right there's an end table, and there's a bottle of ink and a set of quills, and on his lap is scattered parchment, and there's an ink smudge on the figure's nose. And as you enter, he looks up and says, "Oh, my lens! Oh, goodness! Now there is a fresh drink of cool water on a hot Shire night. A hobbit!" He stands and kind of beckons you forward. Come now! Your name precedes you, Master Tuk. Now, I take it, are you any relation to the old boar brewer?
Yes, it is indeed a pleasure to meet you, Master Baggins, and yes, I am in some ways distantly related to Bull Roarer.
So, and he kind of sits down and gets a blank piece of parchment and dips his quill in some ink and says, "So, who is your father, your grandfather, your mother, your grandmother, your second niece, uncle, cousin, and twice removed third uncle?"
And Goodwill chuckles and he says, "That's quite a few names to remember this one evening." And then Goodwill proceeds to give some names of his father and grandfather and mother, so that Bilbo can write it in his parchment.
And he makes small talk and just banters back and forth as he jots down your lineage and closes his book, and then kind of looks at Goodwill and says, Yes, we hobbits, we must stick together. This place is wonderful, but some things, I do think it could use a more bit of hobbit sense. Sometimes elves can be a little bit, lofty, if you follow. We mind our own and keep things on the level, as I always say. A hobbit's place is in the kitchen. Or the tavern, as me and my mates always used to say. Tell me, Goodwill, is there any news from back home? I do miss the Shire so, though my heart knows this is the place for me. Have you heard anything of my nephew, Frodo? I left a bag end to him, and sometimes an old hobbit worries. He has something very precious to me.
The Shire is doing well, Master Baggins. Uh, the, the folks are, as usual, up to their jolly selves, farming, drinking, cooking. And I have seen Frodo once in a while. He seems preoccupied sometimes, but he still has a healthy look about him. And he does have his friend Samwise to keep him company. I do see that now and then.
Oh, he said, both that gardener and my nephew. They always had their heads on straight, nose to the ground, keeping to themselves. Not much took left in him, all a no offense made. After all, he's a Baggins. He'll do all right, no use for me worrying.
That he will, Master Baggins. I am sure of that. He's a good, strong lad, and he has many a years ahead of him. I think he will do you proud one day. That's the sense I get from him.
And he goes over to the fire and pulls up a chair so Goodwill can sit, and then kind of sits back and props his furry feet up on the ottoman again and says, So there, enough about me. Tell me, Goodwill, how did you come to this valley? I thought I would never see another of our kind again. Suffices to say, it's so glad that you're here. It's nice to see feet with fur on them every once in a while.
I do tend to agree, Master Baggins, and my story too is quite interesting. I was in Fornost quite recently, out there trying to find some items of value for someone, and the place was attacked, was under siege by orcs. There seems to be a dark shadow moving towards Fornost.
As you talk again, he like takes his piece of parchment from before and just kind of throws it on the ground and scrabbles around and finds another blank piece and dips his quill in and starts to scribble away. Yes, go on.
And there is a kind but strong-hearted prince that is trying to lead a fight against these orcs and retake Fornost. I'm here to see if I could help in any way. I know it is not often that us hobbits stray out of the Shire, but I feel that if what's happening at Fornost is not stopped, I think the Shire might be under peril if good folk like us don't stand up and do something about it.
Yes, dark business this. Best told in the evenings and in safe places like we are now. So, the elf you came with, Arthanur is his name, I hear.
Yes.
How did he start taking a liking to hobbits? Like I say, many of these folk here in Rivendell are kind enough, but they are lofty folk, and not one to partake in our short lives.
That is true, Master Baggins. And in many ways, Arthanur is lofty in his views and approach to life. But there is something about him. In times that do matter, I think he does what is right by everyone around him. He does come off
nods.
a bit abrasive at times, but then I have met dwarfs and they too can be abrasive.
Don't I know it? He says, well, it seems you're getting swept off of your feet into adventure. You know, that once happened to me. Amidst dwarves, no doubt. They do indeed have an appetite to match the length of their beards, and sometimes are most unseemly in their bodily habits. If you would oblige an old hobbit, I can tell you that tale. In fact, I have it written down here.
And Goodwill's eyes kind of like open wide, and there's like a twinkle in them, and he says, "You would do me a great honor, Master Baggins. It seems this evening has not ceased in its wonders towards me. I would be more than happy to listen to your tales of adventure."
And again, he scrambles around, throwing the most recent notes to the ground, and it almost gets into fire, and he gets his boot and grabs it, shoots it out of the way. Oh, very well. Almost lost the leaves to the flames. Okay, where is it now? Ah, here it is. Little more than a scribble. I do hope to finish my book one day, but I'll tell you a little bit about this business to the east. The Lonely Mountain. Kind of starts to mumble to himself, and yes, here we go. My role mostly was one of author and recorder, as you would know, and as you could see here, but yes. Just realized that no heroics for me. I was hit on the head early in the battle, and I only remember bits and pieces of it, but long time ago, after the dwarves came into the Lonely Mountain, if you may have heard the tales from old Bilbo, dreadful smog aimed to lay waste to the city of Dale. Fortunately, that dragon was slain, but that was only the start of it. Greed reared its ugly head, and in some ways, it was an uglier thing than smog itself. Each of the three parties wanting the dragon's treasure, the men of Dale, the elves from Mirkwood, and the dwarves themselves. In fact, Thorin of our company, but found himself besieged. And though he managed to send word to his kin in the Iron Mountains, a three-way battle was imminent. But then, the orcs appeared. He looks at you and gives like a menacing growl.
Tell me more, Bilbo.
The sky was blotted out with bats, and thousands upon thousands of them came. In the end, it was the eagles, you know, that saved us, hence the name. Men, dwarves, elves, orcs, and eagles. 5 armies. If you ask me, though, a hobbit keeps his head by minding the smoke and the supper, not the swords. If he gets swept up, it's best to stay in the shadows, I say. That's good advice for you, Goodwill. Promise me that you'll keep that head upon your shoulders, eh?
I will, Master Baggins. That is good advice indeed. I do think I can use some of my skills and help the men and the elves in their battle, but you are right. When the orcs and the large swords come out, us small folk are best in the shadows.
And as you sit and chat, talk more about the Shire, and Goodwill asks Bilbo about his time in Ladris so far. Eventually, into the Hall of Fire, you see your friend Arthanur walk in with a rather tall and lordly figure to his right. So this is after your conversation with Elrond, Arthanur.
Mm.
Elrond says, "So this is the hobbit I've heard so much about. I see you found good company in old Master Baggins."
And the moment, I would say, Goodwill would not have initially noticed Elrond come in because he was so intent on Bilbo and his story. And the moment he hears the voice and he turns around, he immediately realizes who's in the room, and he kind of almost trips while he quickly stands up and gets to one knee and says, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lord Elrond. Thank you for letting me stay in Rivendell."
"It is our pleasure. It's not often that we get to house halflings of the Shire. It is for your safety that we have toiled these long years. Although the history of Rivendell and this valley go back much, much longer than this. Even Arthanur here knows some of those days stretching back to the Second Age when this area was in ruin." And Bilbo says, Aye, indeed. And he starts to write again about what Elrond is saying. You see, this is why I stay here, Goodwill. The tales never stop flowing, nor the wine.
Goodwill gets off his knee and he smiles and he says, "It is a wonderful place, and I have heard much about it. But I can say that what I've seen today, the words do not do it justice. I am truly happy to be here."
And Elrond says to Goodwill, "And I've met with your friend Arthanur. He is a very illogical elf, and very skilled with the hammer and anvil. We disagree on many points, but do agree on one point. We may lend aid to your cause, though it may not be in the way that the men of the West would like. Arthanur, could you please fill in your hobbit friend on our plan to send some forces to the north?"
And I would nod and look to Goodwill, and we have determined that it is a poor choice to besiege Fornost during the winter, or march armies around in the same conditions. My Lord Elrond wisely surmised that we should send scouting parties and raiding groups to strike at key points within the orc forces to the north, the forces of darkness, uncover the enemy's true plan and draw them out before the menfolk decide on whatever siege they like to raise against Fornost. It's unlikely we'll be able to corral them from long for making such mistakes, but we will do our part to make any kind of siege or battle they attempt to pull a bit less difficult for them. I would sort of prep myself after going through that.
It does make sense to me, though I am not skilled in battle strategies. I think anything that we can do to help Aravul and the folks of Fornost would be a step in the right direction.
Whatever keeps them from I think should do.
And Bilbo says, "Indeed, Goodwill. Listen to your friend the elf here. I do think he has your interest in mind, and from the look of him, he's a sturdy fellow, and I do not think he means any harm to come to you. But if you would have your druthers, I would druther stay out of battle. It's a miracle that I lived to stand here after surviving that battle of the five armies. The fact that I was bonked in the head nearly did it." He says, continues on, "As I mentioned before, there are many more ways to serve your friends than with steel. Sometimes a song, or a smoke, or a meal cooked over a fire is just what will warm the hearts of your friends and rally armies. For the orcs, they have no such comfort. They fight each to themselves, and thus it is their downfall."
And Goodwill listens to all of that and he says, "I had never considered that these acts would rally men and elf alike. If it does, if these acts do help them in the fight, then I would gladly do them. I can always prepare a good fish and some leek and potatoes for the evening, and I can always fill everyone's pipe with the best long bottom leaves."
Elrond smiles and gives a kind chuckle and says, "Yes, Goodwill took the wisdom and wit of the halflings of the Shire never disappoint. Even after these long years, I am still surprised at your hardiness." He looks to Arthanur and said, "Perhaps it was fate that befriended you to this elf here. He is still short in years compared to myself, compared to Lord Círdan and the others of my kin. Perhaps you will soften his heart yet." I advise you to stay by his side. Just as Bilbo said, he will let no harm come to you.
I will, Lord
I would
Elrond.
not. Hmm.
And in my own way, I will try to not let any harm come to Arthanur himself.
Very well, he says. I must retire soon. There is more business to attend to. Things are moving in the north, and I fear that the winter must be spent in preparation. Make yourself at home here over these next few months. There's much to learn in the library. You may ask myself, or Arthanur, or any of the other of my kin, any questions you have. We will tell you what we are able. And he prepares to leave.
And Goodwill bows again and says, "Thank you, Lord Elrond."
And I would bow as he leaves.
And so the interlude continues, and we're going to kind of do a little bit of a time lapse. So you get to spend most of the winter here in Rivendell, and are able to do a little bit of research, if you would like.
Yes.
Talk to Bilbo, talk to Arthanur. So tell me what you want to do.
So the first thing is kind of do research on some quick like, how do you say, medicines that I could create in the field to provide first aid after a battle. Learn if there is like some elvish how do you say, preparations of like king's foil and other herbs.
Okay. Let's see here. That would be... that's kind of the type of thing they use riddle for in this system. So how about a riddle at 12?
Riddle, cool. Riddle at 12. Where is riddle? Okay. That was my riddle roll.
But that's a great success.
Yes.
So you do find quite a few volumes teaching some of the ways of healing of the elves that are not familiar to the Shire. And you're able to make a copy of that, and you make a bound notebook on your own, and you're able to carry this with you in your pack. And it's winter out, and though the Valley of Bruinen is protected by Elrond and the seasons don't pass there as usual, many of the herbs and other ingredients would be found just outside the boundaries of Bruinen. So you tuck that under your arm, and you keep it for later, perhaps until the spring. Anything else you want to look into?
And
history, lore.
History, yes. So I just want to get a better understanding of the Rivendell area that Elrond was referring to, of how it was in ruin, and the, there must have been brave acts carried out to bring it out of ruin.
How about riddle again? Riddle or riddle, insight, or lore? Same, 12.
Riddle, insight. Okay, I'll do riddle.
Just barely miss. So you go into this huge library, and you find that there are many, many histories of Middle-earth, and many histories of Eregion and of the Bruinen Valley in particular, but many of them are written in Elvish, and unfortunately you don't know Elvish. If only you had a friend who could help you translate.
And then the scene is basically kind of this hobbit running around Rivendell looking for Arthanur, trying to find Arthanur and help him look for these stories.
And I would be in my forge, probably, going through, trying to work on my spear. I've already done that as far as the fellowship phase goes, but that's where I would be.
And then Goodwill comes in, and he's like, "Arthanur, are you in here, Arthanur?"
Yes, Goody, yes, I'm back here. Come on back. I'd put the spear down and swipe off my hands.
I was wondering if you could help me. I'm trying to learn more about Rivendell and the elves and what it took to make Rivendell as it is today. But alas, all the
Ah,
books are in Elvish.
spending a great deal of library again, eh? Just looking over my tools on the table as I'm talking to him.
Yes, I find it most relaxing in your library.
It is a very peaceful place, and I'm just looking over my nails and fingers, make sure I didn't break anything. Ah, I suppose you want me to help read the books to you, yes?
Yes,
You're even a little bitch to him.
yes, that would be most excellent of you, Arthur, if you would do that.
Of course. Give me one moment while I change. I do not wish to go out in my apron and garb. And I would head over and just off to a side room and change into something a bit more relaxed, but it's just very formal looking attire as far as elvish clothing goes. I like to look pretty. And so I come out looking very and well, it has been some time since I spent time in the library. Let us go then.
And then Goodwill will walk along with Arthur as they go towards the library. He would have had a second book now to take notes in.
So you have 3 volumes out, and as much as you can make of it, you kind of have them open to the passages that you think would be of interest to you, and you lay them out for Arthanur. And here's the first volume, Arthanur.
Do you have your quill and ink, Goody?
Yes, I do, Arthur.
I'm about to begin reading. Rivendell was established by Lord Elrond in the Second Age of Middle-earth in SA 1697. During the War of the Elves and Sauron, Eregion was laid waste, and Elrond brought the survivors to Rivendell. Soon Sauron laid siege to it, but was eventually beaten back. Following the establishment of the last alliance of elves and men, the hosts of Gil-galad and Elendil marched to Imladris, and laid camp in there to prepare their arms, and then proceeded southeast to Dagorlad. And I would look expectantly, was waiting for him to finish writing all that
And
down.
Goodwill is like busy writing, and he has like his lip kind of curled around his upper lip. His tongue kind of curled around his upper lip, and he's kind of swinging his legs as he's like furiously writing in his book. Yes, go on, Arthur. This is most enchanting. Go on.
And I would lick my fingers and turn a page and smooth it out. I'm just reading it so I can prepare to translate for him. In the Third Age, when Angmar rose to power and conquered Arthedain, Elrond sent Glorfindel and a host of elves to meet with the armies of Irnil and Círdan, thus honoring the alliance of elves and men. After the fall of Angmar, the heirs of Isildur were fostered in Rivendell.
Ah. Does not Angmar lie to the north?
Does Angmar rule the north?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does.
And Goody's continuously like writing, and he's like,
Would I know of the Witch King of Angmar?
Yes, you would.
And that was is that the seat of his power? It was the seat of his power.
That was the seat of his power. Mm-hmm.
Angmar, Goody, and you may wish to add this as a side note, was once the seat of the Witch King of Angmar's power. one of the greatest of Sauron's lieutenants, and by greatest, of course, the most savage, brutal, and efficient.
And as Goody writes that, there is like you can see there is a quiver to his hand as he's writing about Angmar and Sauron and the Witch King. There is like, even though he's in Rivendell and he's safe, there's still some fear in his face as he writes it. Almost.
I put my hand on Goody's shoulder and fear not, Goodwill. Were we to ever meet the Witch King, I would best him, and then I would just calmly go back to looking at the book, as though I just said nothing very, very ridiculous.
So you put that volume to the side and pick up the third volume. And this one is still in Elvish, but the hand is a bit different. On the front of it, you can see that it was written by actually a human, by a man, one of the Dunedain, it appears. And so the writing style is a bit more in the third person.
I scowl a bit as I open the book up.
And you can see, Goody can see that the cover is in the common speech, and it says, "The Quest of Erebor, the Lonely Mountain."
What is it, Arthanur? What is in that book?
Oh, the tale itself does not offend me. It is the handwriting.
Why?
There's a man trying to write Elvish.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, what you saying, sorry.
Why does it affect you so much, Arthanur? The men?
Because menfolk fingers are clumsy, and it offends me to see them tarnish our language so.
But it is more than the language. I've seen you talk to the men back in Fornost and Araviul himself. Why do you look at them with such disdain?
And Arthanur rubs his chin and leans back from the book and considers if he should become so familiar with this hobbit.
And Goody is going to kind of sensing that there is a story to be told here and a story to be listened. He'll prepare a pipe with some leaf in it. Could I roll something to make a nice?
Yeah, 12. Smoking. 12 or whatever it is.
I think you auto succeed smoking.
Oh yeah,
don't
auto
you? You have
yeah,
it
because
thing.
of specialities.
Yeah.
Yep. So
You can't fail smoking, buddy.
So I pull out my. I have a couple of pipes, and I pull out my the more ornate and that is meant for special occasions, and I pull out a pouch, and you can as soon as I open it, Arthanur would smell the sweet but slightly pungent fragrance of the leaves, and he takes some and kind of start packing his pipe up. He would very carefully and gently light it, not trying, making sure that the leaf is not too hot or, but at the same time, the fire in the pipe is just right for a good smoke. He pulls up a few puffs and makes a few smoke rings to kind of lighten the mood and hands the pipe over to Arthanur.
And he looks at it, and he looks at Goody, and he's sort of, and he will smoke it a bit, but it's not his cup of tea, and he'll pass it back quickly. And he sits there thinking, and he starts to go into it. The last alliance of elves and men. Truly a great time for the elves. There were so many more of us then. Well, I wasn't there, but I remember many things being told to my family.
Yeah, you might probably think that that was the last time that men were actually noble, or they've kind of fallen since then.
Mm. And it was then that I think I might have had respect for the menfolk, but I was not around at that time. Many of my ancestors were. In fact, our line was one of the most prevalent. There were so many of us. My kin, my own kind, my own close family, not just my race, not just other elves. And so many of them went off to war alongside men. So many of them shed blood for men. But when the courage of men was tested to the fullest, when there was an opportunity to destroy Sauron's ring forever, men failed. The sacrifices that my family made were for nothing. And the sick irony of it all, Goodwill, is that my direct ancestor, the one who survived the fighting, he survived because he was afraid. Because he dropped his spear and ran. That is the only reason that I exist here today. Because my ancestor was a coward. So, the failures of men led to the failures of my own ancestors. And it has been a constant struggle to remove that stain of dishonor from our legacy.
And
the blame can be placed on no one more firmly than that of man, of Isildur and his greed. And so many men take after him, even ones that we can consider good. There is always that moment, there's always that piece of them that is a savage, that looks out for themselves. They can't be trusted, not to take care of themselves or anyone else. They have to be guided. Their hands have to be held. It infuriates me that we let them have as much free rein as they do. But we could never police them. And he would just sort of go back to looking down at the book.
And Goodwill will hear everything Arthanur has said, and there is some sadness in his face, but there's also some amount of understanding. And he says, "Thank you, Arthanur, for telling me that story."
Oh, so you're going to be spending quite a bit of time around here. You would hear it from someone anyway. Better me than someone who will embellish the tale and make my grandfather seem or make my great ancestor seem even more cowardly than he was.
But I know this, Arthanur, that you are not cowardly. Yes, I cannot speak to what your ancestor has done, but though this may seem out of place, I feel that sometimes the mistakes of our ancestors are not ours to carry all the time. We do what we can with what we have. But I do know this, that I can depend on you in battle and outside of it. I think that's all that matters to me.
And Arthur would look at Goody and just smile and nod and say, "Indeed, you can depend on me. I am not my ancestor. If my time ever comes on the field, when I'm overran, leave me. Save yourself. I intend to fight to my last breath, no matter what the foe, no matter where I would die."
Goodwill goes to say something. His mouth opens up, and then he realizes this is not the time, and he doesn't say anything, and he looks at Arthur. Maybe let's finish that story in this book.
Of course, let me strain my eyes for the man folk's scribbles. He goes through the book, and whenever you are ready.
I am.
The Quest of Erebor. During the quest for the Lonely Mountain, Bilbo Baggins and the company of Thorin Oakenshield stopped off at Rivendell. Bilbo described it as a perfect house, whether you like food, or sleep, or storytelling, or singing, or just sitting and thinking best, or a pleasant mixture of them all. After the quest, Bilbo and Gandalf returned there and were greeted by Lord Elrond and the elves.
Bilbo met Gandalf?
Indeed. Bilbo, he is one of the greatest and wisest of your people, and a great hero of this age. Any advice that he gives you, I suggest you take it.
I will. I will take all his advice and do the best I can to follow them. And he is right. He is wise. This is the most perfect house I've ever been in.
And as he says that, there's a screen wipe or fade. Arthanur gets some depth. I'm assuming you're each other's fellowship focus.
He's mine. I don't know. I can't speak for him.
Yes, Arthanur would be. After all that has transpired, Arthanur would be Goodwill's fellowship focus.
A bromance blooms.
Mm-hmm.
So your time in this most perfect of houses passes. November passes. All of the leaves of the valley cling to the trees. They're perhaps a deeper shade of red and orange. But life continues on, and Goodwill and Arthanur each go their own ways. They meet many times, and Goodwill perhaps tries to share a smoke with Arthanur. Arthanur politely takes a few puffs and gives it back, as is the custom when the two friends sit on one of the balconies of Elrond's house. And December passes, and then the cold months come, and it rolls into January, and at that point there is a ripple of excitement that passes through the house. And one day when each of you are in the Hall of Fire and talking to Bilbo about his adventures with the dwarves, you see a man walk in who looks very travel weary. And he is greeted by Elrond, and they embrace almost as if they were father and son. And they disappear upstairs into Elrond's quarters without another word, although many of the musicians and other elves down in the lower levels of the house start to scurry about, and you hear whisperings of a feast, and music and rhymes and poetry and dancing shall be had.
Assuming we're out there, we're smoking on a balcony while this happens or something, or what are we doing?
Yeah, whatever.
Sure. And so sitting up there, just sort of waving the smoke out of my nose from Goodwill's pipe, and much talk of a feast, Goody. Would you like to join that festivities?
Oh yes, Arthanur, I would. I am always ready for a feast any time of the day.
Good. After you finish your pipe, we will. And I would look at my clothes and be dissatisfied. I will meet you at my shop or at the feast itself. I must change before we go to such a place.
Oh, and then Goody kind of realizes that he doesn't have his best clothes with him, and he says, "Arthur, what must I wear for an occasion such as this?"
And Arthur will look bemused because I don't. We have tailors here, don't we?
Yeah, you have everything, like paradise.
Arthur would look bemused and then he would sort of rub his chin. Goody, have you ever worn elven silks?
I must say I have not. I've never had the pleasure of trying such fine clothing.
I may know a tailor that could prepare you an outfit for this evening.
That would be wonderful, Arthur. I do wish to put forth the best possible hobbit in the halls of Lord Elrond.
Finish your pipe and we will go and see them.
And Goody, you can see, is like so conflicted, like the chance to wear elven silks and finishing the pipe. And then he takes one long drag, finishes it, and he says, "I'm ready now, Arthur. I don't think I could wait a moment longer."
So as you do that, you go ahead into one of the many abodes there. It's like a little past midday. You walk into this place, and there are bolts of cloth all over the walls, and there is a female elf there at the loom making fabric. And she doesn't even have to look over her shoulder. And she says, "Can I help you, Arthanur? Although your clothes may not look the part, you still smell of the forges. Not that I'm complaining."
And I would smirk. And do I know her name?
Yes, Gilwyn is her name.
Gilwind?
Yeah, and I have to make a note that who this chick is.
Well,
Gilwyn. All right.
my lady Gilwind, I have a favor to ask of you, and I understand it will be short notice, but it is for a good friend.
She spins around on her stool and looks you eye to eye and say, "Well, is your friend with you?"
And I would step to the side, and Goody's probably behind me.
And Goody's kind of like standing on his tiptoes, trying to like make himself be seen. "Oh, hello there."
She just slaps her knee and bends forward, and it's probably like a cultural faux pas, but she kind of addresses you like a child almost, and crosses her legs and puts her hand on her knees and says, Now, what can we do for you, little master? In need of something fancy, are we?"
"Yes, most fancy, for there is a feast tonight, and I would like to be the best hobbit there."
All right, I'm going to make a roll. See how well we do here. Target number 14.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
yes.
Very fancy.
Very fancy. So, a couple hours pass, and you are looking into a looking glass with your new fancy stuff on. And tell me how it goes. Gilwyn looks super proud of herself.
And good.
It fits well.
Sorry, go ahead.
It fits well, and she was a little worried that she couldn't get the hip to waist ratio correctly on a hobbit and the rather short legs, but it looks like she knocked it out of the park.
And Goody standing in front of the looking glass, and he kind of spreads his arms out and spreads his arm up high, and then turns around and he says, "This is most marvelous. I don't know how to thank you. What do you say your name was?
Gilwyn.
Gil. I don't know how to thank you, Lady Gilwyn. This is exquisite.
And she says, "Very well, Arthanur, Mr. Goodwill. Run along, both of you. Don't think that a lady doesn't need time to prepare for tonight's feast. Perhaps I might see you there."
Oh, I look forward to it. And Goodwill would give a bow.
All right. So
As
you're
she's
like,
leaving, I would pay her generously and just. My Lady Gilwind, if you require any tasks done with my hammer blacksmithing, think nothing of it. I will do it for no cost. Anything.
she says, "When I'm in need, I will call upon you, Arthanur. But do you have that high-colored blue dinner jacket with the silver leaf on the collar and lapel that I made for you last winter?"
I do indeed. In fact, I was going to wear it this evening.
I would recommend as much. I'll see you there, Arthanur.
It would be my pleasure, my lady, and I would depart.
So now we're at the feast. So, as the sun sets to the west and casts shadows over the valley of the Bruinen and Ladris and the last homely house of Elrond, you find yourself in glad company and very, very good food and wine that tastes like nothing perhaps you've ever tasted before. And you find yourself sitting in that very first room of the house where that very long table was, and elves are seated on either end of it. On one end is Bilbo, and on his left side is Goodwill. And Bilbo is very proud to teach Goodwill about all the customs of the elves, and he feels very proud of himself as he kind of instructs them on how to eat and in what order, and how not to partake of this much wine because it's super, super potent for us. The elves can drink it all night, but a couple goblets and you'll be floored. And he tells Goodwill all of this information, and Arthanur is seated on the side of the table next to them, and on his right is Gilwyn. And then a little further down from them is Elrond, who you've met, and Galdor, who Goodwill has met briefly. And there's another elf there that just looks even on par with Elrond, but this one just seems to shimmer with his own light that seems like radiate from him. He just emanates kind of this nobility and power. And next to Elrond is the only human at the table. And the feast starts, and there's music, and there's dancing, and there's chit-chat going on, and a lot of small talk, what passes as small talk for the elves, probably talking about the stars and seasons and that sort of thing. And,
philosophy.
Yeah. And you catch part of the conversation between the human and Elrond. Arthanur likely knows who this is. It's Aragorn, the chieftain of the Dunedain.
Mm.
And he's been fostered in this house for many years. In fact, that entire line of Isildur has been fostered under Elrond from son to son to son for many, many years. And it is some small miracle that he has returned here during the winter, no less. And Arthanur might suspect he has news. And so You hear his conversation with Elrond, and Aragorn says, "It's unfortunately as I feared. I was successful in my hunt, and not all the news was glad. The creature Master Baggins knows as Gollum is indeed crept closely to the enemy, and may even has been in the enemy's council. It's hard to say. He's a miserable creature, twisted and morose. I now understand the pity that stayed that hobbit's hand, why he did not slay him. What's more, the fact that the shadow now grows in the north now makes more sense. I fear that the enemy stirs again in Mordor, and perhaps that which we will not speak of has been found again, as Mithrandir Gandalf suspects." Elrond says, "These are fell words, Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Perhaps it is best left to the light of day to discuss." Glorfindel and Galdor kind of speak up, and they say, "Your point is well made, Elrond, but if you cannot speak freely in these halls, then where can you speak in all of Middle-earth? Indeed, the enemy fears to go near this place. We should stay here until the last of our people sail to the west." And Aragorn says, "Then what of men? My blood and yours has mingled. We have served and fought against the darkness for many long centuries. Do not betray us now. It is when we need you most." And he takes a bite of his food, and Elrond and Galdor and Glorfindel kind of give each other some glances, and Elrond looks to Arthanur and says, "Aragorn, son of Arathorn, perhaps you have met the famed smith, Arthanur. He has been to the north, and he knows the darkness that grows there. Despite our misgivings, we will send aid to your people, although it may not be in the way that the heir of Cardolan would wish. Arthanur can speak more of this mission." He kind of gives you the nod.
And I would have had a pretty sour look when Aragorn was bringing up the whole "do not betray us now" thing, because the whole line of Isildur thing, he was reared in these halls. I probably has a sour taste in his mouth about that, but I really respect the relationship that Elrond has with Aragorn, but wouldn't go out of his way personally to go any extra step to be kind to him. That said, though, Elrond did ask him to explain it, so could drink from my wine and present myself, because I had been relaxed before. I'll get a bit business serious and lean forward. "My lord Elrond has wisely determined that we should send scouting parties and raiding parties to the north to aid the menfolk there in helping to retake Fornost, which was lost. The heir of Cardolan thought it was best to lay siege during winter, but I believe that but Lord Elrond and I agreed that moving armies and preparing sieges during this time would be hasty at best. We believe doing this method will help discern the enemy's true intent. Fornost, there is more to this ploy that the forces of darkness are engaging in. By harassing and drawing them out, we can figure out what their true intent is, and if the menfolk to the north wish to continue their siege, then we will aid them as we must. The north cannot fall."
And Aragorn nods, and as much as he is able, he is courteous to Arthanur and says to him that I can't disagree with your logic. It's not even clear that myself and the Prince of Cardolan agree on all points. But what matters, matters, and what matters, it seems our needs have been met. And Halron says, very well. Enough of this talk of dark times. It is winter. The sun sinks well below the horizon. And we have 2 fine hobbits in our midst, and there's a lot of clapping. And he introduces Master Bilbo Baggins, who needs no introduction. Then he introduces Goodwill Took of the Shire, who's come through hardship here, and is a friend to Arthanur, the renowned smith of Imladris. And asks Goodwill to introduce himself. And he says, now, Master Bilbo, we all know, is a poet. He's a fine author and knower of rhymes and singer of songs. What about you, Master Goodwill Took? Is there more to you than meets the eye as well?
Thank you, Lord Elrond, for that most gracious introduction.
And by the way, like, while all this is going on, Bilbo is trying to, like, tell you who is who at the table, because he feels like he's an insider, and like he knows who Glorfindel is, and got like, you know, he feels a pride in kind of pointing all these out to you, because it's almost like he hangs out with the stars. You know? And so he's like scribbling like a picture of like what the lore would think a Balrog looked like, and like has a picture of like Glorfindel like slicing it down, and says like he's old, really, really old. And this one, you know, he's just like telling you all this lore.
Backstage pass, bro. I saw the band.
Yeah.
And Goodwill will, you know, thank Lord Elrond for the most gracious introduction, and he will bow to Aragorn, Galdor, and Glorfindel, and he would say, yes, Lord Elrond, I believe my time here has taught me many interesting things about the elves and the men and us small folk. And I do have a song that I would like to sing to all of you present here today. I think it meets the mood that is in the room this evening. If you would permit me, Lord Elrond.
And Elrond scoots his chair back, and he gives you a gracious gesture and says, we'd be glad that you would grace us with your song, Master Goodwill.
And then Goodwill gets off his chair and kind of makes it up to where I'm assuming that there are like some elves playing the what's the string in harp and some other instruments, and he goes up there so that, you know, he has everyone's attention, and he bows a little and says, the song I have for you this evening is a song of friendship that I have come to cherish these past few months. Friendship of you, Lord Elrond, and Master Baggins. But I think most of all, it's my friendship with kind and true-hearted Arthanur here. And he starts kind of relaying his poem. The feeling of friendship from the start is that special feeling in your heart, a feeling from deep down inside, a feeling that no one should hide. A friend is there through good and bad. They make you happy when you're sad. They brighten up your darkest day just by the simple things they say. Now, friendship can't be bought or sold. It may get tarnished, may get old, and at that point he kind of gives a knowing look at Arthanur. You can overcome your greatest fear. Just look around and it is there. Now, friendship's one and only cost is to make sure that it's never lost. And with that, he bows a deep bow to everyone in the room, and he looks up.
And everybody just stands up from their table, and what starts as a slow clap slowly builds. And everybody gives you a standing ovation. Goodwill took. And the evening wears on, although Arthanur may have something to say about this.
Arthanur would just be like sort of stunned that someone, because he wasn't expecting that at all, so he's just kind of watery-eyed and might be even tearful at that. He's had some. I mean, he's always had the respect of his fellow elves, but I think there's always been a bit of a stain there. But so for him to get that during the night, like out of nowhere, he's probably a bit teary-eyed and trying to wipe that up quickly as a warrior.
And Rivendell himself approaches Arthanur at some point during the night and says, "You are fortunate to have met this one." And he looks over to Goody, who's laughing and drinking with Bilbo. And he says, "I've known many hobbits, many men, and many elves, but this one is made of stern stuff. There is light within him, and it shall not be easily dimmed. You may find that he is the light of your party when times are darkest."
And Arthanur would look at Glorfindel and look at Goody, and he would look back to Glorfindel, and I will see that light never. I'll see that my light fades before that light. For though I was honored being called a great smith, there is nothing so good as being called a great friend.
And he nods. And he prepares to leave and then kind of turns and almost as if he's forgotten something, he says, "The weather tellers say that the snow outside will be soon melting. We are preparing a small journey to the west. No, not all the way to the west, but at least to the White Downs and Elostirion. It has been too long since I have gazed across the great sea to Valinor. Would you come with us, Arthanur? There are things we need to discuss, and it's time that you met Círdan."
It would be my honor, Glorfindel.
All right. And so the feast ends, and January and February wear on, and it gets to be early March.
Awesome.
And Glorfindel and Arthanur ride out one morning out of the Bruinen Valley on their way to the White Downs. And that fits in with the timeline of our last session where Arthanur met up with the rest of the party.
Mm.
If you understand. And so it's an early spring day when Galdor and Goodwill are out near the rim of the valley. And as promised, Galdor is going to show Goodwill some of the lore, the herb lore of this area.
Mm-hmm.
And Galdor, in so many words, asks if, "Oh, let me see," is being kind of a good-hearted jest, kind of ribbing you a little bit. And they say, "I know that Master Bilbo is wise, but I'm not quite so sure about you, Mr. Tuk-Tuk. You've had all winter to do your homework. Now what have you learned? I expect you to produce a fine notebook, no less." He obviously doesn't expect you to have this, but you do, right?
Yes.
So he just kind of crosses his arms and leans back.
"Ah, Galdor, I do have a notebook for you, and it has all my notes that I spent all winter making, of all the different herbs and potions that I can kind of whip up with knowledge of the elves. Here you go.
And he looks quite surprised, and he runs his finger down over the leaves. At the last, starts speaking Elvish to himself and says, "Very well. I know how to find these. Pay mind, Hobbit. Perhaps you can learn a thing or two." And you guys go out of the valley and range far and wide as the spring springs, and he teaches you a little bit of herb lore.
Nice.
Now, I would like you to make an herb lore check. It's only at 12 since Galdor is with you.
Cool.
Let's see, it's the herb lore. Let me see. Let me look at your. How about healing then?
Healing. Okay, perfect.
Healing.
Oh.
Oh no! You could fellow that.
Yes, I'm going to use my hope point for that.
Good.
Perfect.
All right. So I want you to write this down on your sheet.
Okay.
So
Under notes.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a little bit custom goodness for Goody.
Yeah.
So spend your hope point.
I did.
And throughout the day and the next week, you kind of hang out with Galdor, and he teaches you some of these elvish healing methods.
Okay.
And so you only have time to make 3 doses of it, but you have this Athelas kind of tincture that you've made that speeds healing.
Okay.
And you can use it 3 times.
Okay.
You can make more of it at any point, but you're going to have time to search for the herbs and time to make it.
Okay.
And if that time should ever come, you know how to do it. You just need to make the rolls, if that makes any sense.
Sure, makes sense.
But for right now, in your equipment next to that cool little notebook, you have 3 doses of this stuff.
Yes.
All right, cool. And so the spring wears on, and it gets to be towards the middle of March. And Arthanur shows back up. And one day you and Galdor are down near the stables, and you see Arthanur and the rest of the elves return from the west. And obviously Arthanur has met Eravul and the others, and is able to speak with Goodwill briefly about it.
As soon as Goodwill sees Arthanur riding in, he's going to kind of go rushing out to kind of greet Arthanur, having not seen him for so long.
Yeah, and I would give him that half hug because he's a short fellow. And oh shit, I'm trying to recall the conversation. They told me they were going to recruit the 8 of the dwarves, correct?
They told you that they're holding off on putting the siege. They have the Dunlendings. They're getting the dwarves. Everything's kind of coming to a head.
I'm gonna give him a hug and half smile, but also look fairly grimly determined because that means we're gonna be leaving soon. I knowing all that, but I have news, Goody, about the situation in the north.
What is it, Arthanur? Tell me. Is all well?
The heir of Calador was on the road when we went to the west. We briefly met him and a group that he has banded together. The Dunlendings have been recruited to the cause. I look a bit distasteful with that. They're heading north to gather the aid of the dwarves. It would appear that the siege is being put off for some time while everyone prepares, but it will not be long.
So it means that we would have to leave this fine place.
We will soon bid this place farewell. Hopefully not for the last time, but war is war.
I see. We knew this day would come, and I have been lucky to be here for this while, however long it could have been.
Well, let us enjoy what time we have left in this place, and then when we must leave, we will.
So it shall be, Arthanur, once again on the road.
And that's a very short scene, and that ends. A couple more weeks pass by, and Elrond has recruited Arthanur and asked that Goodwill and Galdor and a handful of other elves head north to Estelden to inform the men there about the plans of the elves. Now we're going to get a little more synergy. I don't know if you remember this scene, Ghost. Recap, this is now. It's almost pulp information. So Willward, who was sent by Eravul north to tell Estelden of the plan, meets with Halbarad. Halbarad goes ahead and greets him. I'm summarizing here. Says, "Welcome, Willward. You have come from the south. I trust your journey was safe." And he agrees it was. It was hard traveling through the winter, but now the spring has come and snows have melted. And Willward says that to make ready for battle, and that siege will come soon to Fornost, and that even now, Eravul and one of the heirs of Cardolin has gathered a host of at least 1,000 Dunlendings that are loyal to him and their own leaders, and will march up the Greenway for the cause. And even as they speak, they march to Ered Luin to hopefully convince the dwarves to join. And Halbarad says that the point is well taken and you are well met, but basically we're way ahead of you. The elves have sent an envoy, making Lord Elrond's wishes known. And out of the shadows step Galdor at the front. In the last session, it was just Galdor, but now we know that Arthanur and Goodwill was with him as well. And they say that they'll be sending sorties into the North Downs and the southern reaches of Angmar in order to harry the enemy. And if Fornost cannot be supplied, then they will not withstand siege long. And that is fortunate that siege was not laid in the winter, but now that spring has come, they have the spring and summer to rid the North Downs of the shadow. That's all it is for that scene.
Awesome.
And a few days pass, and one of these sorties is being put together. And it includes Arthanur, Galdor, and Goodwill, and maybe a couple other dwarves, or a couple other elves and men. And they're about ready to ride out one morning when they are greeted by a man who calls himself Aurelon. He goes, "Hail there. Good luck in your endeavor. May I have a word with you?"
Who's he speaking to?
Just you in general. Just, like maybe you're about ready to ride out and he kind of comes around the corner and raises his hand.
Speak your piece.
And he kind of gives you a bow. You recognize his green cloak and his dark hair and his tall stature, that he's likely one of the Dunedain. There aren't many of them around. He looks very similar to Aravul, actually, and he looks to Arthanur and Galdor and Goodwill and says, I overheard your discussion with Halbrad. Have you been in the south, or do you have news of my brother Aravul?
Ah, I see who you are now. I thought I'd recognize you. Yes.
He might not recognize you because he was like way wounded, right? When you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that we were along when we rescued you from that camp. You're looking better, I suppose.
He says, you were among my rescuers. I do apologize for not thanking you sooner. I did not know. And he gives you a deeper bow and says, I am indebted to you, and you may be.
I am Arthanur. You owe me no debts. It was your brother that led the group. I do not believe you can be indebted to a brother. As for the news on your brother, he is well last I saw him for the most part. Though that was quite some time ago.
He nods and he looks to Galdor and Goodwill and Arthanur and says, well then, my brother has found loyal and hardy friends. I will leave you now. I will be on another sortie shortly, leaving after you. May you have good luck, and may the wind bring you fortune.
And I would nod and say, don't waste the life that your brother saved. Fight smart. And I would start heading out for the sortie.
And the three of you head out. I'm not going to do travel rolls or anything here. Getting towards the end of it here. Let's see here.
That's a bit outrageous.
So over the next 3 or 4 days, the three of you, as well as, I don't know, maybe there are a dozen or 2 dozen others, wind your way into the North Downs. Every once in a while you see smoke rising in the distance, and you crest a hill and then that smoke trail disappears, and you crest another hill and that trail disappears, and you send a scout out, and there's rumors of orc bands traveling from the mountains to Fornost, and before you can get there, they're gone. They just leave just a trail of refuse behind them and damaged trees and woodlands, and they leave bones and half-eaten carcasses, and they burn and they pillage wherever they can. Eventually, though, Scout brings a report back that there's been a more permanent camp found on the far side of a hill, and the sun is setting. He says that not only are there bands of orcs there, but there are bats roosted in the trees that block out the sunlight, and that's how they travel by day. And there are many covered wagons that no doubt are supplies. The scout recommends some sort of attack, if not to kill all the orcs, at least to burn and destroy the supplies.
I agree. This is our mission. We haven't accomplished much since we set out. We might as well do something.
Galdor agrees and looks to Goodwill. Says, Master Hobbit, what does your hobbit sense tell you? Is the time ripe? We may have need of your healing skills as of short.
Galdor, As always, you jest well. I think the time is ripe. We must do what we can to stop them here.
All right. So Galdor says that he's going to take a group of scouts and continue forward around one flank of the enemy while Arthanur is in charge of the other flank.
Alright. And I would gather up my band of men and, well, band of elves, hopefully, and look them all in the eye and left to right. Remember, we want to damage the enemy, but the focus is the supplies. That's the key. That is our mission. Every orc you kill, it is just a bonus. If we destroy their supplies, they will wither and die. They will not fight on empty stomachs. They are weak creatures. Remember that.
So you of course wait until sunrise to creep closer to the camp, knowing that the evening is when the eyes of the orcs are sharpest and the sun is your ally. But unfortunately, Galdor has to break his sortie off and comes back and actually regroups with you and says, on the far side of the hill, the sun is blotted out. Bats swarm in the sky and clouds gather in the east. Some foul sorcery masks these demons' movement. I fear the sunlight will be of no use to us.
Regardless, we committed ourselves to this cause. We will do what damage we can despite a disadvantage. Strike quick, strike hard, and then leave. We must not get into a protracted battle with these monsters.
Galdor, may I ask, how much supplies do they have?
He says, we counted over a dozen wagons, each of them fully laden, laid out in 2 columns, and pulled by, well, beasts.
Would you say a small, quiet person could get there undetected and maybe set the wagons on fire while everybody else is distracted?
Galdor sits up and looks to Arthanur, says, I suppose it's possible, although the numbers of them are too great. They would need some sort of distraction.
Galdor, you would take command. Make sure that the hobbit gets there to do his duty.
He says, very well. If this hobbit shows me one small bit of friendship that he shows you, then I'd be glad to have him by my side. He looks to Goody and says, no harm will come to you, Master Hobbit. Stay near. Come.
Oh, I was going to be the one that went out there. I'm sorry if I didn't phrase it right.
Oh,
I was asking Galdor to take command so I could stick with Goody.
Okay,
make sure he gets to the wagons.
We'll do that. All right, so Galdor kind of takes off, and the 2 of you kind of sneak off. And the way this camp looks like, again, I didn't prepare a battle map or anything like that, but basically you crest this hill and kind of inching forward. You can see down below. No longer are the wagons in 2 columns, but the wagons have kind of been circled throughout. Like the camp has become a circle with the wagons, and in the middle of it, there's a big bonfire, and there are several sentries of orcs that are stationed about the periphery, just outside the wagons. And these have smaller campfires, and you can hear them. You can hear the yelling and snarling and that sort of thing.
So my thinking is we're waiting for Galdor to initiate the attack, and then we move. We're just kind of on the periphery, right outside the sentry range. And whenever the attack begins, they'll start shifting over, get in, start setting fires.
Okay. So you guys creep forward. I want you guys to both do a stealth. DC 14.
Oh, fuck. Time to Dolph, baby.
Ah!
Well, you could always spend a thing. I don't think I can.
Well, both of you have to make it.
Well, then it doesn't even matter. Don't even bother spending it then, because I wouldn't make it.
Okay. So basically, kind of in the distance, you hear this horn blow, and you hear. Ah! And on the far side of the camp, you kind of hear some elvish voices ringing out into the dawn light. And although the air is blotted out with bats and clouds, and it actually starts to rain a little bit, but on the far side of the camp, you can hear that Galdor's company has gone ahead and kind of assaulted the front of the camp, hoping to buy you time. As you sneak forward, though, one of the first sentries does not abandon its post and stands guard there by a fire. And in their heightened sense of awareness, they look up and see you coming. They say, "Who goes there?" "Oh, we're surrounded. We're getting attacked by this side as well." And you see two of the orcs here.
And at that point, I'm just striding forward. No worry in my eyes whatsoever, and I look to Goodwill over my shoulder. "Burn the wagons. I will buy you time. Stay safe, little hobbit."
I shall, Arthanur, and you stay safe too.
All right, I want you to roll a d6.
Who?
Arthanur.
Looks like 3.
Not bad. All right. So there's 3 of these guys. All right, so we're going to do a combat round, and then I'm gonna give Goody his chance to act too. Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So we'll do the combat first as Arthanur strides up to the sentry. These 3 goblins are kind of gathered around a small campfire, and behind them is the first wagon. And they look up and they're, and you see Arthanur brandish his spear, and they say something about, "Hey, you're used to us running, but our master's blotted out the sun, and he can blot out more than that. You're all gonna die." And they kind of bang these bent swords on their shields. And so the way combat works is I'm gonna have to bring out my cheat sheet since it's been a while. But I think the first step is opening volleys. Do you have anything ranged that you want to do?
As long as it wouldn't interfere with my ability to get into close combat, sure.
It's just like this cinematic moment, slow motion, you're walking forward.
There's my bow.
18. Which one are you going to shoot?
Middle one that was talking, I'm assuming.
The middle one that's talking. Okay. So that would be 12 plus their parry. Let me bring out these words real quick, buddy. Uh, 12 plus parry would be 16. What'd you roll?
18.
Yep, so you hit him. And it was an ordinary success. So what's your damage on your bow?
The bow is 5. Ooh. Oh, no, never mind. I was looking at the edge. I'm wrong. Okay. Because it was too low for edge, but yeah, I hit him. 5.
5. And so he only has 2 left, so he's hit. So this one just like steps back, gets an arrow in the shoulder, says, "Go ahead and get him, boys." And so you have the initiative, so you get to attack first.
I'll go
And
defensive stance.
Defensive stance, so it's green. You already did it.
Yep. And I would, as I'm striding forward with my spear out now, just quickly, as the elvish custom of doing things quickly and like on bow away, spear and shield out. Yes, you little fiend, we may all die, but the 3 of you certainly won't live to see that day. And I would smirk and move forward. And I'm just gonna try to follow up on the one that That's crap.
And
I
you
may
miss.
add my... I think I'm gonna add my body to that.
Spend a hope.
Yep.
So that's a normal
That's gonna
hit.
be-
He dies.
Just like I told him.
And so he starts to say something else. Well, I'm going to tell you. Just gets gutted. And so the other ones go ahead and attack. 7 miss.
No.
7. Ooh. Well,
Close.
21, right? Is that yours?
Yep. It's 21.
Yeah, he misses. Miss and miss. And so
Close.
camera cuts back to Goodwill. He's sneaking around just outside of the firelight.
Mhm.
And what are you going to do?
So as soon as I get in range of the cart, I'm going to try and light it up. Is there any? It almost hurts him, but he's going to like kind of light some of his herb and kind of throw it into the cart to set this thing on fire.
Yep. So you're able to go ahead and dash towards the fire and catch some of your stuff on fire. And you are going to go ahead and head towards the first wagon
Mm-hmm.
to set that on fire.
Yes.
But as you do that, I want you to roll a stealth at 12.
Stealth at 12. Okay. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So as you do that, like around the other side of the wagon, there's like a goblin there taking a piss. You almost come too close. He almost sees you, but he kind of turns around and you duck down. He doesn't see you, and the first wagon goes up in flames. And instead of seeing you right now, he's preoccupied with the fire. He's like, "Hey, the back here setting our wagons ablaze. Help! Bring over some of that grog. Throw it on the flames."
Oh, works.
So he's hanging out watching the fire right now.
Awesome.
And so second round of combat, Arthanur. Roll for your bonus dice, by the way. Battle.
Oh shit, that's a good idea. Let me get this eye out of the way. Oh! Well.
That is I think it counts as a great success, so 2, maybe?
Does it count as a great with? I thought it was just auto succeed with the Gandalf. But...
Yeah, it's just 1, then that's fine. You talk me into it.
So it'd be this one bonus dice?
Yep.
Okay. And I have to announce those before roll, right?
Yeah.
No problem. I'm gonna pocket that for now and just try to stab another one of these little idiots. I guess I'll go for the one on the right. Oh my god.
No.
A whiff.
Not looking good tonight, boys.
Miss. Miss. So they're coming after you. Not much going on. And Goodwill finds himself again now outside. Now one of the wagons is blown up. The fire starts to catch and it starts to go on some of the other wagons, but there's just too many of them around for the entire thing to catch on without him going around and doing some more damage.
And he's gonna continue. Try and find a wagon that, if it lights on fire, it would spread more. Could I roll something to like try and find the best wagon?
Search.
Search, yay!
Search at 14.
Oh,
Don't forget your hope, because that's a great success if you can.
oh yes. Then let's do that.
And you've got like 15 hope or something, right?
19. I have now 17. I'm gonna use a hope for
Roll.
that.
Be liberal. You got fuckloads of hope.
So you're not going to have to make a stealth check because of that. And so this time, knowing that they might have an orc station next to each of the wagons, you find a wagon that seems to have this kind of black powdery substance in it in barrels, and you light that on fire. And I want you to make it athletics.
Yes.
Athletics at 12.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Sphincter pucker.
I know. Ooh. Can I hope?
You could.
Yes, I'm gonna.
Would you pass it?
How does that work?
It's your. I think athletics is body, isn't it?
Yeah, athletics is body.
Ooh, no, it won't. It won't.
It won't work.
Oh.
It only give you
spend
11.
Don't spend it. Take the hit.
So I'm just going to do 1d5. Actually.
Oh, that's okay.
Just take yourself 3 endurance.
3 endurance.
But you're also knocked prone.
3 endurance.
But the good thing is with that great success is like the orc that was there just gets
Yay!
just gets blown up, and you don't even know what gunpowder is. So you're just like,
Yeah,
what the hell?
exactly. So I mean, Goody sees black powder and he's like, what's up with these orcs? Like, what's with them and black, right? So he's like,
Fireworks or something.
yeah. So he's just gonna like, takes a quick puff with his pipe and then takes the leaf and just chucks it in, not expecting it to blow up. Next thing you know, it blows up and he's on his ass looking up at the sky and he's like, what?
No eyebrows.
Cool, that's my turn.
So this thing blows up, and even that unfortunately attracts more attention. And at that point, Arthanur starts to hear some snarling.
Oh, good.
And he sees not reaching him, but just on away across the camp, kind of fleeing from the flames where Goodwill is. He sees some like bright eyes in the night, some wolves. And you're up again.
All right, let's try to roll dice that don't suck. That's better.
Yes.
Same one.
That hits him. That's a great success.
All right,
So
that's going to be.
That's going to kill him.
Yeah, because it's plus your damage value, right?
Yeah. So your spear.
It's
What's your
12.
spear? Yeah.
Spear's 5, combat value for. Well, I get favored body for it, so it'd be 9. It'd be fucking 14.
Yeah. You kill him. You take that one out. His buddy goes after you. Misses again. And Goodwill's up.
How do the wagons look now? Are they mostly on fire, or are there still some that can?
There's about half of them. So about like your half of the camp now is on fire, and you can see a lot of the orcs like are trying to throw grog on the supplies, and it's just sometimes it works depending on what it is. Like sometimes they're piss buckets and not grog, so it puts the fire out. And sometimes it just makes it worse because it's alcohol.
Okay.
So they're just running around in disarray. On the other side of the camp, you just see blades flashing, and Galdor is just. And you think Arthanur is good. Galdor is just like Matrix style, cutting down these orcs.
Wow. Okay. This is a tough one. Goody's gonna proceed, even though he has been advised to stay safe. He just can't bring himself to seeing Arthanur and Galdor fighting with such valor. He's going to try and do whatever he can to help. Stealth?
Mm-hmm. Where are you going to be? Are you heading more into the fray, or?
Yes, trying to light the other, the other wagons on fire, whatever he can.
Okay. So you're heading more into the busy area, so your target number is going to be 15 now.
Okay.
So there is there again. You sneak up, but there is an orc guarding this other wagon, and this orc is looking around. Oh, where are they coming from? He's like, the boss told me to guard this wagon at all costs. He's totally unaware of you. I will let you shank this guy Assassin's Creed style if you want. Without a reprisal.
Okay.
You just RP it.
Yeah, so...
Or not, I don't know, like what weapon.
So I have a short sword, so Goody's gonna, he's kind of sneaking up on this place, and he sees, just as he rounds the corner, he sees this orc that's looking around but has not yet seen him. And though he detests it, he feels he has no choice but to kill this being for the greater good of Fornost, and he basically thrusts his short sword into this orc side, the goblin side.
By the way, in my games, orcs are wholly evil. Don't hesitate to kill them. There's no misunderstood orcs; they're just bad guys.
Okay, cool. Then Goody's just gonna he's still not used to killing things. He's not yet gotten that.
Oh, he's scared.
Yeah. So he's still worried that his blade and his hand will fall to the last minute and ruin is going to come upon him. But he kind of steels himself and he thrusts that blade deep into the orc.
Okay. You get him, but as you do that, this black ichor just kind of runs down over your hands, and you start to shiver a little bit. So give me a fear check.
Sounds good. Fear. Wait, where's the fear?
Basically, you just roll your valor.
Valor, okay.
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh!
Boom!
These hobbits are made of stern stuff. So as this black orc blood courses over your hands, you just grit your teeth and go about your business. After all, you have good hobbit head about you and you have a job to do. You're not going to let anybody get in your way.
Not even yourself.
Not even myself.
Not even your own fear.
And I proceed
so you set this one light. Good. How's that look?
So Goody right now is he's so conflicted. He's using all his good herb to light everything, but he feels that maybe this is what sacrifice means, and he continues to take a quick puff of the of his pipe, and throw the embers and the lit ash into the wagon, trying to set that on fire.
That one goes up in smoke too. It just catches on fire. It doesn't blow up or anything. So that one's a light. There's one more section of wagons. At that point, the first of the wolves gets to Arthanur, and you can not only see that it's a wolf, but on top of it is mounted a goblin.
I know you don't know why, Bo, but I'm having PTSD right now, and I'll explain to you later.
And he goes, "Oh, maybe you can cut down my kin, but let's see you outrun these boys. Nash, 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 get them." And so, round of combat again. Arthanur, you're up.
I'll try to finish off the one that's on foot before I confront this new menace. And he can definitely eat shit, because that's going to be an injury roll.
That is going to be an injury roll.
I guess he can eat shit.
So how much damage to him then?
There was no great success, so it's just a 5.
5. So he's wounded, but he kind of continues to fight. And he comes at you. He misses. The wolves. So the wolf comes up on you and bites. $21, right?
Yes, sir.
Ooh!
Oh my god.
Ooh, 21. So that's 3 plus twice their tribute level. So it's going to be 9. 9 endurance. Loss.
Oh.
Are you wary?
I sure am.
Mark yourself wary. And instead of attacking, his mounted orc says, Look what I told ya. Rip 'em to shreds, boy." And he calls over his shoulder, "Oi, we got one down here. The blood's flowing. Let's finish him off." And he starts to call some other orcs and wolves over in your direction. And so Goodwill is up.
I'm assuming most of the carts are on fire at this point, correct?
Yep, there's only one section left.
Goody feels that he's pushed his luck far enough. He's going to start trying to come back and link up with Arthanur at this point. He's not going to risk. He feels he's done whatever he can.
All right, roll your stealth at 14.
Oof, nice.
Yeah, so you move across the battlefield again and dart in and out of orcs' legs, and even the wolves don't sense or see you, and you go in and out of these burning wagons and come back to Arthanur's side, and as you do so, you see that this wolf has a hold of his leg and is biting him.
So as I get closer, would it be possible for the next round, to prepare for the next round, could I have picked up something that's on fire?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I would do that for this round, preparing for the next round.
Okay. So you have some fire.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you some fire.
Fire.
Okay. And so,
I would, if it's possible, I wouldn't link up with Atna seeing that the wolves are there, but I'll try and stay, if it's possible, like here behind them. I can roll a second stealth check at the beginning of the round to see if I'm still hidden.
okay. Arthur is up.
New verse, same as the first. Here, I finished the one on the ground.
Oh!
Not looking great. I need to beat a 16, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Guess I'm using a hope point to kill this dude. Because that would just meet. So
So that would be a great success, though, too. So, well, you kill him regardless, right?
yeah, I wanted to not take 2 attacks per round right now after getting smashed to fucking pieces.
And so he's going to bite again.
No more 6s.
Oh, yes.
Miss.
With the
So
Gandalf.
he snaps and misses. As he snaps and misses you, the orc takes a swipe at you with his sword this time, looking over his shoulder as the reinforcements, like the other side of the camp, is just slaughtered. There's like maybe a dozen or so orcs left, and now they're just kind of going berserk and fighting for their lives. You're kind of on their way out, like you're on their way, running away from Galdor, and he misses. Ah!
You had best rely on your wolves. You are not very good at this.
So Goodwill's up.
So I would like to, be stealthy and try and light the wolves' tails on fire to kind of make them run away.
You don't have to do a lot. Wolves have a fear of fire.
Cool. So then I'm going to basically light the tails on fire.
Okay. Let's see here. What do you got to do for that? What do you think?
I was thinking like stealth. That way, if I'm not stealthy, then I'm kind of left open for attack.
Yeah, let's just make it a little bit harder. Maybe 16.
Cool. Ooh. I'm going to hope that.
So making a hope, that'll make it a great success.
Yes, I'm going to hope that. Yes, I hope that.
So as you do it, the wolf looks back and notices that its tail is on fire. He starts to yelp, and he runs off past Arthanur, carrying the goblin with him. Hey, where are you going? And they flee into the night. And then from the flames, slaughtering orcs one by one, you see the golden-haired Galdor cuts down 1 or 2 orcs, and then in between all of you is just an orc chieftain who seems to hold his own, and he's like all the orc slaves that are around him, he like pushes in towards Galdor so that he can try to save himself, and so he finds himself surrounded.
I would step in front of him when he tries to run away.
Yeah. Galdor is going to be close.
By all means.
All right, so that one ran away. So you're up again, Arthanur.
Galdor would be if he's in close combat.
I guess he is, isn't he?
Yep.
Let's see what he rolls. His stats really are set up on a macro. Allies. Galdor. Misses. So he comes forward, the sword flashing. He goes to hit the orc chieftain, and then some little snaga, some slave orc, kind of gets in his way, and so his sword buries in this one's skull. And he has to kick it off, and he's like, "Ah, you won't get away, fiend!"
He certainly will not. Roll injury. Man, these guys are nuts today with this shit. 5 damage.
Let's see what chief's is. Or chief. 5, you said?
Yep.
15 in Goodwill. I need you to, if you're going to enter the fray, I need you to roll battle and then tell me what stance you're going to be in.
So is this the only person there, or the bunch of orcs around him?
There are a bunch of other ones, but everybody's fleeing. This is the one that's caught. This is the last one standing, basically.
Goodwill is not going to enter the fray. He's going to kind of take a step back and kind of hide behind Arthanur. I'm assuming that the orc chieftain is pretty badass looking, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So yeah,
But you can go into rearward.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's there. I forgot.
Pick up some rocks and start throwing it at him.
Yeah. Okay. 1 minute. Let me roll my battle.
There you go. Rearward.
This is my
So
battle.
Arthanur's up. Then now it's your turn. Yep.
9 is my battle.
Okay, so you get no bonus die. It is your turn.
Okay. I've never tried this. I'm going to try and use my bow. 10.
All right, you miss. Whiff. Oof.
Cool. That's my turn.
Orc chieftain Galador misses him, so he's not facing him. So he attacks Arthanur. It's a miss.
Pathetic.
Ah! All right, back to the top. So Galador, it's like, you won't get away from me so easily, fiend. There we go.
Nice.
He hits him. That's just a regular hit. So damage with his weapon is actually 6. So it's going to be okay. Arthanur's up.
Use my bonus die. Oh my god. That wouldn't even count. And doing the body would not help. So
You miss. Goodwill's up.
Here we go. 10 again.
man, being wary sucks.
Goodwill misses.
I think I'm just gonna leave this one to my boy.
Chieftain's like, oh, I can smell your blood. I might not get out of here alive, but I'm taking you with me. And let's see what he has here. Okay. Another miss, huh? He misses. Lifts.
You're too clumsy to kill me, orc.
Galdor again gets him.
Tearing him up.
Turn and face me, you coward. I'm going to send you back to the shadow.
I'll take care of that for you. That's gonna be an injury roll.
That would kill him anyway, right? I think I'd kill him anyway.
5 damage.
Let me see what happens.
Oh, he would have passed it.
He would pass it, but 5 damage does kill him. So how's that look?
So Galdor's just cutting him up, and he refuses, trying to focus down me so he can get away, and I sidestep that last blow, maybe knock it away with the spear, and then just run him straight through the neck. Boot him off.
Just falls down. In the distance, you hear a horn. And what's left of any of the slave orcs or any of the wolves just flee into the night. And you guys are surrounded by burning wagons, and your first minor victory of this potentially bloody engagement and war. Yeah, that'll be it.
Awesome.
Nice.
I'll pause the recording. I'll stop it.
Yep, you can stop it.